Stop scrolling. Not every pause is random. Some pauses are arranged. And if you are still here, something inside you recognizes that this message is not noise. You have felt it for a while now, haven't you? That strange tension between knowing you carry something meaningful, yet feeling completely unseen. You watched others rise fast. You saw platforms grow, names circulate, opportunities open. Meanwhile, you stayed consistent, you stayed disciplined, you stayed sincere, and still, it felt like you were building in the dark. Listen carefully. Hidden does not mean forgotten. In a world obsessed with visibility, Allah refines certain souls in secrecy. Some people are elevated publicly. Their growth is loud. Their validation is immediate. But others, like you, are shaped away from applause. You were not ignored. You were insulated. There is a difference. When Allah prepares someone for something weighty, He does not rush exposure. Heavy responsibility requires reinforced character. Influence without humility collapses. Visibility without discipline corrupts. So the silence was not rejection, it was reinforcement. You were learning to worship without witnesses, to stay obedient without praise, to remain patient without reassurance. That kind of sincerity is rare. Anyone can perform when people are watching. Very few remain consistent when no one claps. But those quiet acts, the late-night du'as, the silent restraint, the decision to choose halal when compromise was easier, those are recorded, not by people, by angels. And while you thought nothing was happening, documentation was happening. The delay you hated was protection. The isolation you questioned was calibration. The loneliness you carried was separation from what would have weakened you. Allah sometimes removes noise so identity can solidify. If recognition had come too early, ego might have grown faster than character. If doors had opened too soon, you might have depended on approval instead of Allah. So you were hidden, not because you are small, but because what you carry is heavy. Heavy impact requires stability. Heavy influence requires humility. Heavy trust requires purification. You are not late, you are being layered. Layer by layer, your reactions were refined, your intentions were tested, your dependence shifted from people to your Lord, and that shift changes everything. If this resonates with you, if you have felt hidden but not broken, type "chosen" in the comments, not as pride but as responsibility. Subscribe sincerely if reminders strengthen you, and share this with 3 people. Spreading reminders carries barakah. You never know whose silent struggle needs light. Because here is the truth. When a soul is nearly ready to be unveiled, pressure increases first. And what comes next will explain why. You thought the scars meant you were weak. You thought the hardship meant something went wrong. But what if the pain was not damage? What if it was design? Look at your life honestly. The betrayal that changed how you trust. The rejection that humbled your confidence. The door that closed when you were certain it would open. The season where nothing moved, no matter how hard you tried. You carry marks. Not all of them are visible, but they shaped you. And here is the truth most people never realize. Allah does not waste pain. Every test that reached you passed through permission first. It was measured, filtered, allowed, not to destroy you, but to refine you. There is a difference between punishment and preparation. Punishment leaves you empty. Preparation leaves you stronger. Refinement is not comfortable. When gold is purified, it is placed in fire. When muscles grow, they tear first. When character matures, illusions are removed. And illusions never leave quietly. You once trusted people blindly. You once expected loyalty from everyone. You once believed effort guaranteed immediate results. Then life corrected you, not to make you bitter, but to make you balanced. Look at Prophet Yusuf, peace be upon him, thrown into a well, sold into slavery, imprisoned unjustly. Each stage looked like humiliation, but every stage stripped ego. Every stage strengthened patience. By the time he stood in authority, he was not arrogant. He was composed, because prison built what palace life never could. Or consider Prophet Musa, peace be upon him, raised in royalty, then forced into exile. Years spent as a shepherd before leadership. Shepherding teaches patience, responsibility, calm strength. Those hidden years were not random. They were formation. Some of you are in your formation years. It feels slow. It feels repetitive. It feels unnoticed, but it is shaping reflexes inside you. Notice how you respond differently now. You no longer react impulsively. You no longer chase validation. You no longer crumble at criticism the way you once did. Pain rewired you. It made you quieter, but stronger, more cautious, but wiser, less reactive, but more anchored. Scars are not proof that Allah left you. They are proof that you survived what could have destroyed you. And survival produces depth. Depth is expensive. Some people have charisma, some have talent, but depth is built through hardship, handled with faith. You could have turned bitter. You could have turned reckless. You could have turned arrogant once things improved. But you chose patience. You chose sujood over self-destruction. You chose reflection over revenge. You chose growth over gossip. That is refinement. Tests detach you from ego. They expose where pride still lives. They reveal where dependence on people still lingers. They force you to rely on Allah more deeply, and reliance is strength. You are not being tested because you are forgotten. You are being tested because you are capable. Capacity increases under pressure. If the pressure grew heavier, it means your ability to carry expanded. You are not fragile anymore. You are forged. The scars you once hid are not embarrassments. They are qualifications. The disappointments you endured were not interruptions. They were alignment. Because when Allah prepares someone for elevation, He strengthens the inside first. But refinement has a side effect. When a soul becomes polished, it begins to shine. And light, even quiet light, changes environments. In the next part, we need to talk about why resistance increased, why some people became uncomfortable, why pressure intensified when you started becoming stronger, not because you failed, but because light exposes what darkness wants hidden. Have you noticed something? The moment you became calmer, resistance increased. The moment you stopped chasing validation, criticism grew louder. The moment you strengthened your discipline, distractions multiplied. That was not random. When a person begins to carry light, even quietly, environments react, not because you announced yourself, not because you became arrogant, but because growth changes frequency. Light does not need to scream to be disruptive. It simply exists, and by existing, it exposes. And exposure makes people uncomfortable. Some of the tension you felt was not about you personally. It was about what your growth revealed in others. When you stopped gossiping, gossipers felt judged. When you became disciplined, procrastinators felt exposed. When you chose obedience, compromise became obvious. You did not attack anyone, you simply evolved. And evolution creates distance. Some relationships shifted not because you became worse, but because you became clearer. Your standards rose, your boundaries strengthened, your silence deepened. And not everyone benefits from your clarity. Jealousy is rarely loud at first. It is subtle. It appears as sarcasm, dismissiveness, backhanded compliments, reduced support. Why? Because light highlights insecurity. When someone sees you surviving what they would have collapsed under, it unsettles them. When someone sees you growing without applause, it challenges their dependence on approval. You became a mirror, and mirrors are uncomfortable for those avoiding reflection. But understand this carefully. Not every attack is dramatic. Sometimes it is internal. Doubt increases, overthinking increases, unexpected fatigue appears, old temptations resurface, growth triggers resistance. When you elevate spiritually, ego resists dying. When discipline strengthens, comfort fights back. And some of the pressure you felt was not enemies, it was transition. You were shedding an older version of yourself. That shedding feels unstable because identity shifts are uncomfortable. But here is something powerful. The attacks you survived became credentials. Each misunderstanding taught you emotional control. Each rejection strengthened independence. Each criticism refined your confidence. You stopped reacting to every opinion. You stopped explaining yourself to everyone. You stopped needing to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. That is maturity. And maturity looks threatening to those who prefer chaos. The prophet, peace be upon him, faced resistance not because he was weak, but because truth disrupts systems built on falsehood. We are not comparing levels, but the principle remains. When clarity enters confusion, confusion resists. You are not being attacked because you are insignificant. You are being resisted because you are stabilizing, and stability challenges instability. There were moments you questioned yourself. Maybe I should shrink. Maybe I should soften my standards. Maybe I should go back to being less noticeable. But shrinking would have suffocated your growth. Allah did not refine you to dim you. He refined you to stabilize you. Light does not compete. Light does not argue. Light does not beg for acceptance. Light simply stands. And when it stands long enough, environments adjust. Some people will leave. Some will misunderstand. Some will quietly resent. Let them. Because your responsibility is not to be liked. It is to remain aligned. The resistance you faced was not proof you were wrong. It was confirmation you were shifting. But here is the deeper layer. Sometimes Allah allows resistance to test whether you are seeking His approval, or people's approval. If opposition makes you abandon obedience, then obedience was never rooted deeply, but you stayed, not perfectly, but sincerely. And sincerity under resistance is strength. You are no longer the person who crumbles under tension. You are the person who grows through it. And that growth is preparing you for something else. Because sometimes the reason things did not unfold earlier was not because you were weak, but because the timing was protective. And that brings us to the next truth. The delay was not denial, it was strategy. You thought you were behind. You watched people your age move faster, launch sooner, grow quicker, get noticed earlier, and quietly, you questioned your timeline. Did I miss something? Am I late? Did I make a wrong turn? But listen carefully. Delay is not the same as denial. Sometimes delay is protection. If certain doors had opened when you first knocked, you would have walked through them with a version of yourself that wasn't ready. Not evil, not incapable, just unprepared. There are blessings that require emotional stability. There are platforms that require humility. There is influence that requires discipline. Without those foundations, elevation becomes exposure, and exposure without preparation can destroy. Look at Prophet Yusuf, peace be upon him. Authority did not come when he dreamed about it. It came after the well, after betrayal, after prison. Each stage built restraint, built composure, built depth. So when leadership finally arrived, he was not hungry for revenge. He was anchored. Or consider Prophet Musa, peace be upon him. Years in obscurity, years tending sheep in silence before confronting a tyrant. That shepherd season looked small, but it trained patience, watchfulness, responsibility, leadership in isolation before leadership in public. Preparation always precedes promotion. You wanted acceleration. Allah chose stabilization. If success had come earlier, ego might have grown faster than character. If recognition had arrived too soon, you might have depended on applause instead of obedience. So the door stayed closed, not to frustrate you, to fortify you. Exposure magnifies what is inside a person. If insecurity lives inside, exposure amplifies it. If arrogance lives inside, exposure feeds it. If sincerity lives inside, exposure spreads it. Allah strengthens the inside before expanding the outside. That is mercy. There were opportunities you begged for that would have overwhelmed the old version of you. There were relationships you chased that would have distracted you. There were stages you desired that would have inflated you. So timing was adjusted, not because you were unworthy, because you were being built to last. Some people rise fast and fade quietly. Others rise slowly and stand firmly. Which one do you think carries weight? The unveiling that follows patience carries depth. It carries steadiness. It carries clarity. And when Allah chooses to elevate a servant, it is not to display ego. It is to reflect His mercy. Your growth will not be about proving people wrong. It will be about proving discipline right. It will be about showing what obedience produces, what sincerity builds, what restraint protects. But here is the key. Stay humble. Because the moment ego claims ownership, protection weakens. You were hidden for a reason. You were tested for a reason. You were delayed for a reason. And when your moment comes, it will not look loud. It will look stable. It will look grounded. It will look earned, rooted in obedience, anchored in humility, protected by the one who never forgot you.